Raise your hands if you are. Okay. So we do have some, and I know I visited with the number that there's another gentleman that was a consignor here that probably with his family out back that participated in it. So I do think that's an important step for the breed and an important in moving the breed forward. If you know anything about my background, and I should mention that Nick Forrest was the one that really got me onto doing this job with you guys this afternoon and then speaking with you this evening. I got my start standing at Montana State University, where I did all my training, but I was, along with many of my other colleagues, and in particular Dr. Rodney Todd, who was instrumental in moving the Targhee breed forward in terms of adding carcass evaluation to the plethora of other traits that the Targhee breed measures. And that began in about 2005. And I will say that the Targhee breed doesn't necessarily directly select for carcass improvement, but it's certainly one of the traits that we want to get the poorer individuals out of breed. So I think that's an important thing. I had kind of a prepared presentation to share with you. We went to get the projector out, and needless to say, whoever used it last decided to take cords with them. So we couldn't do that. So I've got some notes here that I want to make sure that I kind of follow along. And why ultrasound scanning is so important to our sheep industry. And in general, and I recognize that it's not the case with your breeding, because obviously you're not harvesting more, but in general, income breakdown or profit breakdown for the sheep industry is somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 95% based on lamb sales. Obviously, 100% of your time or 100% of your profit comes from lamb sales or breeding sheep sales or whatever, not from wool. If we look at carcass information, and in particular looking at dressing percentage, we can generalize and say that of the live weight, 50% is going to be our dressing yield. How are we going to make improvements in that dressing percent or in that dressing yield if we don't use some type of either genetic improvement or the use of a tool like ultrasound? And so that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. If you look at carcass value in general, you can say the majority, and when I say the majority, I mean about 40%, because if you break down some of the big retail cuts like wraps and loins, legs, shoulders, wraps and loins attribute probably about 40 to 45% of the carcass value. Okay, so if we can improve the loin eye size or the loin muscle size, we have the most potential to improve carcass value for our sheep. Okay? One thing I know that y'all here in the South take pride in is producing an American product, an American lamb. And we know that we have to battle imports of lamb from other countries. Well, we need to find a way to differentiate ourselves from foreign products. ribeye area or ribeye depth, you're going to improve carcass value. Ultrasound is an excellent predictor or estimator for these carcass measurements. And what it means to you guys sitting here is that you can see an improvement in dressing percentage. That improvement can be made quickly because of the heritability of those traits. Improving ribeye area and the lambs that we're selling to consumers, and again, improve acceptance of American lamb over our foreign product. And I think it has the most value for breeds like this that are providing some direct marketing. How many of you are involved in direct marketing? Yes. Your consumers want more meat for that carcass or for that live animal. So I guess what I want to get some feedback from you guys. And I wanted this to be kind of a casual discussion in that why it's important to your breed. And as I mentioned already, I'm a wool breed person. I raise Carnese myself. I see how even in wool states like South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, we're seeing a reduction in sheep numbers. I don't know, I'm guessing that Tennessee might not be in that case. They're actually improving. Significantly. I think there's tremendous opportunity for your breed to capitalize on that. And we know that immigration in our country, the people who are immigrating are lamb lovers. I think we have an opportunity to take advantage of that and grow our flock. I think that your breed has tremendous appeal to, and in visiting today with people, there's quite a homestead movement in Tennessee. There's a homestead movement across the country since COVID. Sheep are very appealing for families and can provide a very healthful meat product. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for the breed. But I also feel that you as an industry or you as a breed need to come together to figure out how to move your breed or improve your breed all the time. And I think genetically and the use of ultrasound technology helps you do that. So I'm encouraging you to take the steps to be involved in technology like ultrasound, but also in genetic improvement like NSIP. How many of you that aren't involved in NSIP take weights on your lambs? Everybody, right? Pretty much everybody. You figure out lambing percentages, drop percentages in your ewes. You take all of those profit parameters already. NSIP isn't much more than that. And so I want you to just, again, food for thought. I'm encouraging you to think about that. I'm anxious to hear your input as well. I was told today that we would have about 40 lambs to scan. You know how many we ended up scanning? Over 60. So that tells me that there's interest. Either you figured you had a captive audience with me and you were gonna put me to work and make me earn my pay, or you're genuinely interested in the data. So
who's going to analyze that? I can have a lot of figures. I can see them, but to put the picture, the analyzation, maybe you have to feel like Dr. Jacker know we're good.
Well, in terms of what data you're going to get from me in this setting is, basically I'm collecting ribeye depth and back fat thickness to calculate an area for you.
Okay, let's say that I have you scan my ram and it has a large ribeye.
Yes.
But it's also got a huge amount
whether that animal has durability
What story does that tell me?
or stayability, you know, longevity in your flock. Does that fat relate to how it converts grass, or is it converting grain?
Well, yeah, and as we know in most breeds, the larger they get, the conversion, you know, diminishes.
I'll say this. The one thing that estimated breeding values gives you is that it takes that effect of environment out of the equation. Whereas in a setting like this, you all have come to this sale under different feed conditions, different environmental conditions from different states, and we may be comparing apples to oranges. However, I will say that this is the best first step that you can take. The next step is, you know, and some of you are part of RAM tests, where you've taken individuals to a central location to feed. That at least kind of puts animals on a similar playing field. But I don't disagree with you at all, that effective environment has a huge impact, and not knowing exactly whether you want a fat animal or whether you want a lean animal. It really depends on your environment. So I know I'm not directly answering your question.
That confused me. What
What I'm trying to say is that the use of estimated breeding values takes that out of the equation, and you're able to compare apples to apples. How are you guys going to use the data from today? I heard in our discussion a little bit about marketing, that you were going to use it as a marketing tool. I want you to think about it in a little different frame of mind and thinking it from a selection standpoint. Yes.
I think maybe one of the things, and maybe this is where you were coming from on this, is we have to be educated ourselves, I do, on what those EDVs mean. You can put a 0.3, 0.5 on there. I don't know what that means.
Yes.
And then once we learn it, we almost have to educate on the marketing side of it. We have to educate our buyers.
It's a
They
huge
have to-
step.
And there are people that will do it. I've seen it done. We had a breeder that did EDVs before, and he was very successful with that. But his clientele had to be educated. And I don't know that. And so that was the thing. We have to learn that. I'm not saying it's not going to be useful to us. We have to be educated what that those numbers mean. 3.5 good. Is that not good? You know, we don't know. So,
And I will say from a national setting, if you look at the data of lambs across the U.S., and there's been over the years, there's been several entities that have collected it. But in general, the U.S. average market lamb is about a 2.9 inch ribeye in general. So, and where, you know, I'll reference our foreign competitors. They tend to be much smaller, more like 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So we've got a good product. And I agree that education, I will say when I was at Montana State University, we had an extension person that was a believer in it. And that was the majority of his extension program, was the education part. Not only bringing along people who were seed stock producers, but also helping commercial producers understand what numbers they're looking at and what it means to the profitability of their operations. So that's a very good thing. But I do want to emphasize again that this is a great tool to help our customers on Saturday, but it should be a great tool for you to be able to select for better animals, or at least be able to take the top end and keep them and move your bottom end out. Yes, sir.
You talk about selection. What is the prime
to your ewes would be, what, 125 to 140 pounds? Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, that's, yeah.
125 to
125.
160 to 175.
No, but I'm saying, I'm using that as a reference point. I think most of the lamb, your finished lambs would be in that, what, 115 to 130?
No. 70 to 90.
Yeah.
70,
They-
yeah.
York lambs get their heads cut off a lot of
But
times.
those aren't what we would consider finished lambs, right?
But that's our market.
That's our
That's
our-
your
for our-
ethnic market.
for our
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
They don't cut the heads off of stuff. They don't want to cut the head off of nothing that weighs 115 pounds. Packers don't want that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those lambs in my market were smaller, less than 80 pounds. They're not frozen.
Yeah,
And
they're
we've got
fresh.
people coming from, let's say, Vikings, Indianapolis, in vans, and they're chilled.
Yep.
They'll load 25 to 30 months chilled carcasses in that lamb, and in that van, and away they go. So there's a, especially if you factor in the conversion ratio, if you try, even with conventional sheep, the bigger they are, the more they eat. So it goes from 4 to 1 to maybe 5 to 1. So let me give you just a short example. I'm in a German area that going stock, hot stock, a lot of German bushels. Had sheep for many years, and I had other breeds of sheep. I could go down with 115, 120 pounds, and they'd want it because that loin eye, in that case, really looked good. Well, when I switched to Dorpers, and I'm glad I did, okay, I lost that market because I got those. I was moving them at less than 80 pounds, and he couldn't put that.
The value in that lighter lamb was a lot greater than keeping it.
So I lost. We were all friends and everything, but I lost that market.
Quick, go ahead.
Yeah, he had a question, sorry.
Well, it's really more of a comment. If we really look at where our customers are, they're selling 60 to 80 pound lambs, the commercial side here. And so one of the things really key on ultrasound for us is used as a tool to predict the percentage of number one lambs at 60 pounds. So if there's a threshold that says a ram with this amount of ribeye and this carcass value, then it has a higher percentage of lambs that top the market. Predicting carcass value isn't the thing. Our commercial customers are typically selling lambs through sale barns. They go to the ethnic trade, 60 to 80 pounds. In my case, for some of you, it may change 70 to 90. Certain times of the year, it could be different than that. But it's really the number one thing for me is if my customers feel more confident that they'll top the market with our rams because of what we know about the carcass data versus they would with another ram, then there's value. They can monetize that. That's what they understand as what the value of the differentiated ram is worth to them.
That was the genesis of my question, is if I am selecting rams and I'm going to use ultrasound as a tool, what is the age where I should be ultrasounding? I mean, can I do it young and have an indicator of what's going to be in a 2-year-old ram, or have I got to do them at a year-old? I mean, what is the age limit that I can use the ultrasound as a predictor?
Well, I honestly don't know as much about the physiological growth curve of a Dorper sheep compared to some of the meat breeds I've worked with. And I don't know at what point in the growth curve, because typically in ultrasound, we're trying to measure that animal when it's most actively laying on muscle. So if we get it too early in the growth curve,
I could address that.
You did answer the question in the point that if you're selecting rounds, then you want rounds that will give that predictive measurement at your market weight,
Yes.
at your prime market.
So when we're typically doing this, we're going to be adjusting it to a specific weight.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about
So
that.
we'll adjust it to weight X. So and the industry's has been doing this work for a lot of years on what those adjustment factors are. And when we're sending them to RAM test, we'll adjust to 120, but we can do that differently as we need to. So for a specific condition. So
And
so
I was
it's
shooting-
yeah.
And I was shooting for the adjustment in the fall animals that I measured to 125 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's why I was assuming we were doing the falls, is because of what you said there. They're still growing.
Yes.
They're atrophy. Honestly, our breed may peak a little earlier than some of that. Some of ours probably peaked a couple months ago. But it's still something that can be adjusted, I think. That's a good question to me. I mean, I would be wondering if you want a bigger loin, I would shoot, let's go get my big yearling ram and loin I am. But that's not going to be accurate data for us to use.
I think that they're at the point where they tick.
Yeah.
And especially if you think, animals that have been used for any type of breeding, I think they've begun to change in how they partition nutrients. And to me, measuring mature animals is never possible. I think this has been a great discussion. I hope
Do you take
that
into consideration how they're being fed?
exercise in doing this,
Because that's what I'm saying, that's going to be huge
some
too.
value in, or will see some value in. I hope this is a discussion that you as a board members, the association continues. Yes, sir.
I hope though, that somebody smarter than me crunches that day.
Yes, yes. And thank you to those of you that contributed to, that was, when we were talking about this yesterday, that was the hope that it would be fairly, interactive. So, yeah, thanks, appreciate everybody, very nice to meet everybody, thank you for letting me be a part of your future.